Students at the University of Idaho remain on edge as police appear no closer to naming a suspect or a motive in the gruesome killing of 4 students nearly 3 weeks ago. And as investigators offer few details about what they've learned from forensic testing, the families of the victims are starting to publicly question whether police are correctly handling this case. Let's bring in Darrin Porcher, former NYPD Lieutenant and Pace University law enforcement professor. Darrin, thanks for being with us. Appreciate your time. You know, I know you think that police have made a series of mistakes here. You're starting to hear the same thing from the victims' families. Where do you see the biggest problems?
Well, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to our viewers. I think the biggest problem is misinformation. Ultimately, we want police to introduce accurate information to the public because initially they stated that this was a targeted attack. And then moving forward, they stated that this was possibly a random attack. A random attack is very problematic for the surrounding community because we now have a situation where an assailant can arbitrarily attack someone else. Therefore, it's incumbent upon law enforcement to take this person into custody as quickly as possible. But at the same token, when we hear the misinformation coming from this police department, it becomes questionable as to do they have a capable off-ramp in gaining an arrest in connection with this investigation.
Yeah, you know, all of that is obviously straining these families who are reeling from the deaths of those precious girls and wanting answers. One of the victims' fathers starting to sound off pretty publicly about it. I want to play you some sound from him.
I don't like it one bit. I know these statements take like hours and multiple individuals to review. It's not like this was something said on the side of the street within the first 5 hours of the case. I mean, these guys are professionals. They sat in a room and this is what they came out with. And they keep coming out with statements that create more questions than the answer.
So does that tell you that what these families are hearing is, you know, just as sparse as what we're getting in the public? I know sometimes police departments will, you know, withhold information publicly because it might impact the search for the suspect. You don't want to, you know, give a tip out there that might develop a lead. But you would hope that these families would be getting more than they're getting at this point. Does his sound there, what he just said, tell you that they're not?
I understand where he's coming from, but you also have to understand the Moscow Police Department is a very small police department. It's not the LAPD, it's not the NYPD. This is a very small unit. They have the assistance of the FBI, and Governor Little has given an endowment of, I believe it's $1 million to assist in the investigation. So it seems as if they're building the plane as they're learning how to fly it in terms of getting all of these entities to work together in unison. And another problem that's not really coming up here is this is a transient location. When I say a transient location, meaning college students live in this house, and we've had, I want to say, upwards of maybe 100 people that lived in that house over the course of a year. So it becomes a very arduous task to assemble or collect the DNA from those individuals that have lived in that house over that period of time, to place that into the CODIS mechanism, which makes the identification for DNA. So moving forward, it's a tough investigation, but we have to give it time. But from the police department's perspective, they need to make sure they have tailored and calculated statements to the public, because you don't want to get ahead of yourself, as we saw happen in the earlier stage of the investigation.
Real quick, does the fact that we're 3 weeks out tell you that we might not get answers, that might never happen?
I genuinely believe that we're going to recover a suspect moving forward. But at the same token, it's the work that's going into this that appears to be questionable based on the statements made by the police department. But just based on my experience as a prior investigator, I firmly believe, give it time and we will have a suspect. But it's just one of these things where we need to, I don't want to use the term wait and see, but provide substantive information to the public to make sure we solve this case.
All right, well, we'll hope that happens. Darrin Porcher, thanks so much for your time.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.